So I thought I'd do a little video about why most white people don't speak out against racism. This video was inspired by someone who I respect, who posted a Facebook status the other day. He said, how come all the other white people don't go so hard on the bad racist white people? You know, something comparable to how black people work hard to debate any of the bad black people who are simply frustrated with white racism and oppression. Why don't white people speak out against their own like we do? So I'm gonna try to answer that to my best ability.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren
and I'm Maureen. So you know, a lot of palm-colored people usually like to claim that they are not racist, and others usually like to claim that they are colorblind, at least when it comes to black people.
Right. So in this episode, guys, we found a video of a palm-colored man who tries to explain the reason why palm-colored people choose to stay out of racist situations when they happen, or why they don't speak up against it. So he's going to be talking to us from the perspective of their own kind, right?
Right. But we as black people, we are forced to wonder, when we hear these words, are we supposed to give him a benefit of a doubt, or should we listen to his words with a grain of salt?
Right, guys. So please, we just urge you to listen to the whole video and hear what he has to say, because I still feel like, although we are going to be coming back and giving our commentaries after this, but allow me to just say this. I still feel like if you're standing around and allowing something to happen just because it benefits you, or because you're fearful that once you speak up against it, you're gonna be treated like the lesser, you know, the people who are considered less, then you're allowing this situation to happen, and partly you're part of the problem. You understand?
Although I feel like right now it doesn't even matter what he or his own kind have to say, because they have been saying this since slavery was abolished. The group that likes to call themselves they're not racist and they do not see color,
Guys,
they've been doing this since slavery was abolished, and right now I'm quite glad that black people are reaching to a boiling point where they're saying we are tired of hearing palm-colored people say they are tired of this, tired of that, and they're not showing them actions. And also black people are taking matters into their own hands.
Don't let it all out, guys. We'll come back with the commentaries. Let's watch the video first.
Mainly because motherfuckers go on the path of least resistance, you feel me? People tend to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's like law number one. We do things that we're rewarded for, and we avoid things that we're punished for. And in order for white supremacy to survive, people who are for white supremacy are going to be rewarded. People who are against white supremacy are going to be punished. So for anyone who speaks in favor of white people, they get rewarded. For anyone who speaks out against white people, they get punished. And it doesn't matter what the race is of the person doing this talking. You know, it could be a white person speaking for or against white people, black person speaking for or against white people. Either way, the way you get treated depends on what your response is and what you're saying. Basic math. Take, for example, a black person who speaks out against black people. You know, this goes way back to slavery, those who lived in the house versus those who lived the field, whatnot. You know, nowadays it's usually black conservatives, quote unquote, they say, who will point the finger at other black folks and say, okay, you're the problem. You know what I'm saying? We're the problem. We're fucking up. That's why we're in the condition we're in. They shift the blame from white supremacy to a supposed black moral or cultural inferiority. And of course, white folks buy this shit. You know what I'm saying? They lap that shit up because it supports some of their ingrained racist beliefs. He helps them sleep at night. He either justifies their racist beliefs that they already had, or he helps them maintain their illusion that racism is over and that, you know, there are no racially based limits to your success in this world. And therefore, any failings you have on your part are based on your own failings. You know, not a system of oppression. He might get called a sellout or an Uncle Tom by other black people, but that doesn't really matter because they don't hold the power. You know, they're not the ones who can actually hold him accountable. It's usually going to be a white person who's signing his paycheck at the end of the day. It's a white person who decides whether he gets promoted or not, whether he even has a job or not, 9 times out of 10. A lot of these dudes even have careers just speaking out against other black folks, you know what I'm saying? Because white people will pull them out. Whenever, you know, something happens, they want to blame on white people, well, pull out the black conservatives. All right, so that's one side of it. Other side is white people who speak for the interest and for the benefit of black folks. And what happens with us? Most white people in this country either feel they have an interest in maintaining white supremacy, or at minimum, in not opposing it. Because when white people do take a stand, we get ostracized for it. And if you haven't seen that happen, it's probably just because white folks who speak out in the interest of black people rarely make it on TV. We don't get called in for the interviews. Sure, you got some white folks who will proclaim colorblind beliefs. They say we're not racist on Martin Luther King Day. They all get around and sing Kumbaya, which is great. I'm not knocking that. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to actually challenging white supremacy in a real way or pointing out systemic injustices in this country, suddenly they're not around. Suddenly they don't want to speak about it. They opt out of the conversation. Most white folks, when they do go hard, they go hard on historical injustices. They go hard on slavery. They go hard on Jim Crow, segregation, but they don't go hard on current systemic injustice. Only time they speak out against what's happening right now is when they're going against extremists. Donald Sterling, they'll throw him under the bus. The KKK, neo-Nazi, skinheads, all that shit, they'll throw them under the bus. But all these people who subconsciously support white supremacy without even realizing it, they're left untouched. They always come to the defense, making excuses for them. And also the media always portrays this whole thing as a black problem as well. Not taking into account the fact that the race problem in this country is actually a white problem. Because white people, for the most part, are holding the strings that actually keep the shit perpetuated. And anyone who identifies too closely with blacks, we get written off, laughed at, looked out as clowns. They come up with words. Back in the day, it was, N-word lover. They call us wiggers, all these different words they have to dismiss and shut down basically white folks who get too close to black folks. And it's funny because on one hand, you'll see the white saviorism mentality. They got these movies coming out where it's all like the white people helping out the poor black people, this paternalistic idea we have. But that's a fictionalized version. The actual white folks who really put themselves on the line and died for this shit, you never hear them mentioned. They don't talk about them in Black History Month. They don't talk about it when they're talking about the civil rights movement. They don't talk about John Brown. You know what I'm saying? Hell, I can't even name most of the white activists from the past. And me being who I am, I should know. Most of us don't even know because it's hard. You got to dig deep to find that shit. And I'll tell you why. It's because they don't want us to see that. They don't want us to identify with that. They don't want us to see that as an option for us. If we look at it like black folks stand up for black folks, white folks, all we have to do is just quote unquote not be racist, and just go about living our lives in comfort. Well, this is what happened. Black folks get the impression that we don't care. They get the impression that white folks just don't give a fuck because of what they go through every day and what we continuously fail to acknowledge. Or even if we do acknowledge, we fail to do anything about it or speak out actively against it. And then white folks, because we don't see other white folks standing up for it, we get the impression that it's not our battle. We're not told the story that it's our battle. And the cycle just keeps continuing on and on. Hell, I've even got people close to me, people who I know are not racist in their heart, who preach humanitarian values, all this shit. They've told me this is not my battle. Why are you fighting this? People I know and love. And when otherwise well-meaning white folks tell me that this isn't my fight, I ask you a question. Why the fuck isn't it yours? How about that? Think about that.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about this video on the comment section, right? The point that I noted, the first thing that I noted when he was speaking, right? And he was saying, I do appreciate the palm-colored people who are not racist, and they go a step further and come out and speak against it and actually do something about it, yeah? But there was a point where this man mentioned something to do with palm-colored people don't like speaking out because of fear of being victimized. You understand?
They'd rather opt out of uncomfortable situations. And you know what they should know, or it's not even a must they know. What they don't know is them, at least they have the option of opting out of these uncomfortable situations. People who have this kind of skin, they don't have any option of opting out of these situations. And that is why you find a lot of black people speaking up against racism, even in countless times where palm-colored people come out and tell them you should stop speaking about racism, and that racism doesn't exist, and that slavery happened a long time ago. If you're not the person who such injustices are happening to, you will never really understand the struggle. Hence, it will be an option for you to opt out of conversations like this one.
Right. And then the points about that he gave about being victimized as a palm-colored person who speaks against these kinds of situation was that he was talking about the systemic injustices that happen against black people, and how if you as a pale-colored person you come out and speak for black people community, now they'll start calling you the N-lover, you know, the N-word lover, and they will deliberately do things to lock you out of the system that directly benefits you. So you'll be treated the same way the black people are being treated, because you are supporting the black people by speaking up against racism. This kind of let me just digress a little bit. This kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones, when Jon Snow was being called the crow lover. Anyway, that's a digression, right?
It is, yeah.
And then let's come back to another very important point where I feel like, guys, I know you've seen such people who come out, even palm-colored people who come out and speak against these injustices, and he gave a point to take note of, something to do with the type of people who come out to speak against injustices, but they choose to not speak about current injustices. Instead, they pick topics to do with past events, like for example slavery, or the Martin Luther King and his what he stood for, right? Because and then you ask yourself,
but they don't choose to speak up for current happenings of what are happening.
Exactly. So
like
they got
double standards.
That is double standards that he's just highlighted there, and I feel like he's exposing, you know, he's exposing his own people, because he said those are the type of people. And then, you know, I don't know when he said this why I thought of people like Tim Wise, and he said when you speak about past injustices you get called for interviews and whatnot, right? But if you're a pale-colored person and you speak about
current happenings about the black community, you'll never be called for any television interviews.
Yeah, and they'll deliberately do things to you to
lock
make
you out of any industry.
Yeah, and to make you feel the, you know, the supporting black lives, you know. And I found that to be quite interesting, you know. And I'm like, whoever put the system in place to such a point where palm-colored people who feel like truly there's an injustice being committed, but they can't come out and do anything about it because they are fearful of losing their privilege, you know. I feel like that system still works, but at least I'm grateful for those ones who come out and speak against it despite of, you know.
Although I feel like for us to truly conquer what white supremacy has done on this earth is for every black person walking this earth to accept and walk into what and who they truly are. You know, it's not easy for you to be one with the sun, for you to be energized by the elements of the earth, and black people can have the power to do that by simply walking into the sun. So if you come to appreciate who you are and what your melanin is, nobody can bully you by how you look and what your melanin represents, you know. The only reason why it still gets to us when racism happens, it's because we as a collective haven't walked into the greatness that we're supposed to be.
And then another thing also the guy mentioned was something to do with, he said something to do with, even if as a palm-colored person you care, not doing anything and sitting there and tolerating it gives black people the impression that you don't care
and you're the same as the ones who are perpetrating these activities.
Exactly. And he says the indoctrination has been so much to the point where palm-colored people, it has taught palm-colored people that when these things happen to the black community, it's not their battle to fight. To the extent where he says that if one of them tries to do something, like he was giving an example of his two friends where one wanted to do the right thing and the other one told him that it wasn't his battle to fight, that he should just step back, And one thing he said that is that don't say that racism or white supremacy is not your problem, that it's only a problem of the black community, because if it affects the black community,
eventually it's gonna affect you and it's gonna catch up with you too.
Right. So it's just funny how throughout the years they've made it seem like that problem does not belong to the white community, and this is where you find where we are today. This is where we are today.
Yeah, and this is the reason why I also like people like Farrakhan and the Muslim Brotherhood. This is because these people were not waiting for any palm-colored person to come and save or defend them. They started groups that would teach young black people how to appreciate themselves, because if you walked into any of these rooms that they would be giving talks in, and for people like us, young people like us who've never had the opportunity to go into the rooms where Farrakhan visited, we have had the pleasure of seeing some of his clips. And the good thing about people like Farrakhan, when you listen to them, it makes you feel like you're a mini god in this earth, like you were created by the very image of God.
Yeah, so guys, let us know what you think about this episode. It was all about why palm-colored people don't speak up against
or defend black people when racism and systemic racism happens to black people. Right. And this guy coming out to admit this has shown us what we've all been knowing all along.
Yeah,
that they know these things are happening and they can see it.
So
even
for selfish reasons,
they just refuse to not get involved,
to not acknowledge.
Yeah, because it's benefiting them. But you guys, when this system changes, cause time is the best teller. Someday South Africa won't be the only nation that black people are ruling.
That is if they act right, because situations might happen to you if you don't learn from history.
Yeah. And black people, you need to start finding your greatness. That is the most important thing,
right?
And stop depending so much on what white people provide for you.
I don't think they're depending on. Right now we're at a point in life where,
especially prime example of what I'm saying, the systems that have been put in place, they were not built by black people. Majority was built by white people, and that's why they found loopholes to step on black people. But slowly by slowly, if we, what the Jewish did, if you secure the bag and build our own systems, things like this won't be happening for a long time.
Anyway guys, let us know what you think about this episode. We thank you so much for joining us. Let's catch you on our next episode.